Hi, welcome back to Bounce Forward with me, Tiff Hall. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this podcast, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. Welcome to part 2 of my chat. We're going to pick up right where we left off. I loved reading your book because it's about lasting weight loss, and we're also heading into a period of time, summer, there's pressure, everyone's still floating bikini bodies and beach bodies and all of that crap, and it's a time when people want to lose a little bit of weight coming into summer. So can you talk us through your fat loss formula? Because I found that really interesting.
Yeah, our fat loss formula. Yep. So it's really about, so our book is Reset, Nourish, Burn. So essentially in the book, so myself and my podcast co-host, we co-host the Nutrition Couch, Susie Burrell. We wrote a book which came out a couple of months ago, which you've got in your hot little hands, Tiff, called Reset, Nourish, Burn. And when the publishers first came to us, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory in the book. We were like, we don't just want another diet book. And they're like, well, weight loss sells. And we're like, we don't want that. People, it doesn't help people. They lose a couple of kilos, they put it back on again. So we said we wanted a book based off dietitians' scientifically backed principles for lasting weight control. If we wanted people to lose weight, we wanted them to keep it off long term. So essentially it's broken down into 3 chapters. It's reset your mindset around dieting, change your relationship with food, and actually learn to eat well for life. It's learning to nourish your body by eating well for life. And we have some really strong foundational principles in there, which make nourishing the body so much easier. And then the last phase is burn. So basically, if you want to, we teach our readers how to burn unwanted body fat using some simple hacks that will just fit seamlessly into your daily routine. So it's nothing that you have to go and spend thousands of dollars on. You don't have to go buy any fancy supplements or new things for your kitchen. It's just things that you're already doing, and it's tweaking those things. But we really wanted to start with the reset phase. It's all about the mindset. That's how you think about nutrition, how you think about your lifestyle. It's learning to nourish your body and actually put the good fuel in, because if you're not fueling the body properly, you probably will emotionally eat, and the cravings will be out of control, the hormones will be out of control, you're not getting enough protein, you're not satiated, you'll overeat at the next meal. So it's learning to actually build a balanced meal and then burn. It very much comes down to, as simple as it is, it's kind of calories in, calories out, but there is so much more that goes into that, but you essentially have to be in a calorie deficit to burn unwanted body fat. But so many women don't want to track their calories forever. It's really time consuming. It's really onerous. Can it have success for a lot of people? Yes. But the minute they stop doing it, the weight comes back on again. So again, is that something that is going to be useful for you to do forever? Maybe not. So the formula in our book, we really talk about, there's quite a few things we talk about, but one of the main ones is what we call our plate formula. So how do you build a balanced meal? And this isn't so much appropriate for breakfast. Maybe so if you're having a more savory breakfast, like eggs, veggies on toast, but not so much if you're having, cereal, smoothies. It's a bit harder to apply the formula. It's more so for lunch and dinner, where we think about it and what we see most women doing. Lunch, we tend to undereat. Some women skip it entirely. Some women grab a banana or a protein bar, and then they're just running off fumes until the afternoon. They're over snacking. They're having a massive dinner. So most women are underdoing lunch and overdoing dinner. And then most women, if they are eating lunch, the calories and the protein are too low. We dump in a tin of tuna with tomato and capsicum, or tuna and some olive oil. It might only have 14 to 16 grams of protein. Not enough, right? Or we're just having a tuna salad with a couple of chickpeas on it and a bit of halloumi. Again, we're not getting that ideally 20 to 30 grams of protein that we want at lunchtime. And a lot of women are dropping the carb out of lunch because they're too scared to eat it. So there's a very fine line between enough carb and not too much. And then with dinner, we tend to be going too hard. We haven't got anywhere near enough salad or vegetable bulk. The carbohydrate portion is generally overdone, or it's not there at all. Like people are just too afraid to eat it, or they're just having far too much of it. And for most women, they're eating too much protein at dinner, because we've been taught that protein is so good, it's so important. But do most women need a 300-gram steak? Absolutely not. Sometimes those salmon fillets, even though salmon is so healthy, it's one of the healthiest foods in the world, a large salmon fillet can be 300-400 calories. Yes. But most women looking to lose body fat, it's too much. So we really break down the formula in the book where a serve of carb, a serve of protein, a serve of healthy fat, and how much veggies and salad. Because everybody goes, I eat enough veggies. Then they come and they work with me. I work in a 12-week coaching model called Lean Gut Mind Method. They'll come and they'll sign on with me. I'll give them some personalized recipes. And they're like, oh, wow, I thought I was eating enough veggies, but I'm not eating anywhere near the amount of vegetables. Because the reality is that 96% of Australians do not eat enough vegetables.
Wow.
We think we eat vegetables. I'm not disputing that we don't, but we don't eat enough. We think we do pretty well. But if you're putting 2 carrots, a zucchini, an onion, and a couple of mushrooms into a big pot of spaghetti bolognese, and you're getting 4, 5, 6 serves out of that, you may be getting 1.5 serves of vegetables each serve. You need 5 serves of vegetables every single day. So it's really hard to get that in if it's not a huge focus at lunch and at dinner, and then either between breakfast or your snacks.
One of the things I took away from your book is people say, I'm eating healthy. Why aren't I losing weight? And you talk about the difference between healthy eating and fat loss. You know, you can be having the salmon, but maybe you're having too much, you know, and that I found that super interesting because you actually called it. And also with the training, are you training or maintaining, you say, you know?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
You got to ask yourself these questions. Are you actually tracking your calories? Are you, in a deficit? It's such a good book, everyone. Get, Reset, Nourish, Burn, and it's a fantastic book. I loved it. I have a question for you, Leanne, from one of our listeners that I didn't really know the answer to. So they asked me, what is healthier than dairy milk? And what is the best alternative milk to use? Because I get confused about this. There's the oat lattes everyone's having, but then my friend just said, I'm not having almond milk anymore, or oat milk's out. And I'm like, is it? Okay. So now we're confused. Can you please help us with milk?
It is so confusing and it is so overwhelming, and it's as much personal preference as it is nutrition science behind it. Because I went out to brunch, it must have been a good month ago now, with some girlfriends, and we all, we started with coffee orders before we did our brunch orders. And one of my girlfriends is like, oat latte, someone was almond milk something, someone was long black, someone said, I'll have something frappuccino with skim milk and something syrup and whatever. And he got round to me and I said, I'll have a cappuccino. And he looks at me and he goes, just a cappuccino? And I said, just a cappuccino. And he was normal. It was almost like, yes. Oh my God.
Yes.
And so I think that we've just gotten so confused and so overwhelmed, and there's so much mixed messages out there. Like, you'll see one person saying, and quote unquote expert, and this is the issue, right? Like, there are doctors fighting online, there are dietitians fighting online, there are personal trainers fighting online between what's right and what's best. But the reality is that every single person's different. It's not so much based on the opinion of an expert. It's what's going to work for you. What does the research and science show us? And then what is going to work for you? So let's break down dairy milk and plant-based milk. Because if you asked me if plant-based milk was healthier than dairy, and I had to give you, I'd say, look, there's many nuances in there. There's a couple of things. But if you said to me, you have to give me is it healthier, yes or no? I would say no. I don't believe that plant-based milk is healthier than dairy milk, but there are certainly some factors to consider. Because when we think about dairy, if you look at the bulk of the research, and you can find any study in the world, you can cherry pick a study out of nowhere that says dairy is bad for you. You can also find a handful that are good for you. So what we look at is meta-analysis. We look at the bulk of the data. You study all of the available research on dairy milk, and what you will find that is dairy overall, there are certainly some small studies that might show it's inflammatory or there are some negative side effects, but the bulk of the scientific research on dairy shows that dairy is healthy. It will help with fat loss, and it will help with weight control and satiation, which is that feeling of fullness as well. So the bulk of the research shows that dairy is actually positive and healthy for humans. If you like eating it. If you don't, then that's another issue entirely. But when we compare dairy milk and nut milk, or dairy milk and, I don't like calling it plant milk because it's not milk, right? So it's, I don't know, nut milk, plant milk, you know what I mean. But when we look at dairy overall, dairy has many nutritional benefits. It is a complete protein. Most nut milks aren't. Dairy milk contains all 9 essential amino acids. It's a really high quality protein source. That's why babies and small children can basically just survive off milk. It is not completely a complete nutrition source, but it's a complete protein in itself. It's also really rich in calcium and vitamin D. A lot of dairy milk is also fortified with vitamin D. It also has other nutrients in it like B12, potassium, and phosphorus for strong bones. So there's some of the benefits of dairy milk. And a cup of dairy milk will give you about 8 grams of protein. So it's actually a good whack of protein if you're having that as a bit of a morning tea snack or to boost up your breakfast. I have a lot of clients who don't love the high protein yogurts from like a taste perspective. So they'll have a bit of breakfast which might have 12, 15 grams of protein. We know it's not enough, but then they'll have a medium latte on, say, skim or full cream milk with that, and they're buffering it up with an extra 8 grams of protein. So it's not insignificant, a cup of dairy milk in terms of protein, particularly if you're looking to add more protein into your diet. Now, some considerations with dairy. Lactose is a big issue. A lot of people, I think, off the top of my head, 25 to 30% of the population has an issue with lactose at some level. And milk is one of the, has the highest amounts of lactose in it. Certainly you can go for a lactose-free milk, which will, settle some of those complaints. Other people, particularly young children, might have a cow's milk protein allergy, so they can't have any dairy at all. So there are certainly some considerations, and sustainability and ethics is another one, right? So dairy farming practices, environmental impacts, they are a concern for some people, and ethically some people just don't want to have dairy, and that's absolutely okay. I'll never make a client have dairy if they don't like it, but if they say to me, should I be choosing oat milk or almond milk or cow's milk or full cream or skim milk, which one should I be choosing? Generally my preference is full cream milk. If they're trying to lose weight, if they're actually aiming for a calorie deficit and we want to save a couple of calories, a lot of my clients will just have a skim latte. But then when we compare that to nut milks, right? Nutritional benefits, why most people will use a nut milk or a plant milk, besides the ethical reason, is generally they believe that it's lower calorie. And yes, most plant-based milks are lower calorie if it's the unsweetened variety, so an unsweetened almond milk, an unsweetened oat milk. The issue is that most of us get our coffee from a coffee shop. I myself am very partial to buying a cappuccino at my coffee shop. I love it. It's part of my mostly daily routine. I really enjoy it. It's one of the highlights of my day is cruising down to my coffee shop, getting my cappuccino and coming home. But what most people don't understand is that most coffee shops use barista-style almond milk or barista-style oat milk. If you ever tried putting unsweetened almond milk into a normal coffee and frothing it, it doesn't froth very well. It separates. It tastes awful. So most cafes, or pretty much every cafe, uses barista style, and it's sweetened as well. That's why your oat latte and your almond latte taste delicious, because you've got added sugar and there's added fats and vegetable oils in there to froth it up and make it basically appear like it's dairy milk. So it froths really nicely and it tastes really lovely. But the issue is that most of us, if you're using unsweetened almond milk in your overnight chia pudding at home, it might be roughly 35, 40 calories a cup. Significantly less than a cup of full cream milk. But if you're going to a coffee shop and you're getting a almond milk latte, that can be between 100 to 150 calories. It can be more than skim milk and roughly kind of resemble, similar to full cream milk calories without the protein and without the calcium. Because if you're doing your due diligence and you're finding an unsweetened almond milk which is fortified with calcium, I can guarantee you your coffee shop's not. Most of the barista-style almond milks and oat milks are not fortified. So if you're relying on that latte in the morning or that cappuccino in the morning with your almond milk or oat milk to get in a good dose of calcium, most of the time you're missing out. Because women in particular, when we hit that menopausal age, need 1,300 milligrams of calcium a day. It is an enormous requirement. And if you're someone who drinks 1 or 2 coffees a day, which most of my ladies do, you're missing out. Because if you're having those coffees on dairy milk, you'd be getting about 600 milligrams of calcium. You're having that on barista almond milk, you're pretty much getting none.
Wow.
So most people they're kind of having the wool pulled over their eyes. They don't understand. They're choosing it because they think it's healthier, it's lower calorie, but it's not. In most cases, it's very similar calories. Like oat milk is very similar calories to full cream milk. It's about 130 to 150 calories a cup without the protein. So instead of getting 8 grams of protein from skim milk, which is only about 80 to 90 calories a cup and about 300 milligrams of calcium, you're not getting any of that. So you're actually having more calories without the protein and without the calcium.
Wow. Mind blown. You have blown my mind on so many different levels today, Leanne.
So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing.
No.
You can do it, but I would be asking your coffee shop, hey, what brand do you use? Have a look at it. And if it's not fortified, you're not going to get much protein in. There are some particular ones on the market that are like a high protein almond milk or a high protein oat milk, but I guarantee you that's not what your coffee shop is ordering. But if you're making your own coffee from home and you're using that, you're finding a brand that does have those things, it's not a problem. I'm just talking about the large majority of people who buy it from their local coffee shop. That's not what the local coffee shops are ordering. If you think that your almond latte has 40 calories in it, I can pretty much guarantee you that you'll be sadly mistaken. You're also not getting the protein and the calcium. So I'm not saying you can't have almond milk, but we just need to be smart with our choices, because I have a lot of ladies that have 2 almond milk lattes a day for probably close to 250, 300 calories. And they're not even counting that within their calorie check for the day.
Wow.
And I'm like, you can't, it's not free.
Blows
it's not a free food.
No.
Yeah. Like you might be putting 40 calorie a cup almond milk in your overnight oats, but that's not what they're using in the coffee shop. And that's the reason that 250, 300 calories is the reason that you're not losing weight. That's the difference between maintaining and actually losing. It can be as simple as some of those little swaps where healthy eating doesn't necessarily equal fat loss. And that's what we talk about in the book. Just because you're healthy eating or you're making what you think is a good choice, it won't necessarily be reflective of fat loss if you're not in that calorie deficit.
Yes, 100%. Leanne, thank you so much for joining me today. I learned so much. That's amazing. I'm going to go have a full cream cappuccino now to get me through the school run. And thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, no worries at all, Tiff. And if listeners would like to come and listen to another podcast, Nutrition Couch, where Susie and I debunk all the nutrition myths. We talk about new and trending supermarket products. We talk about what's in the news. Come and listen to the Nutrition Couch podcast. I've also got my own podcast, Leanne Ward Nutrition Podcast. And if anybody would like a little bit of help with their diet, I have a team of dietitians, very experienced. We offer nutrition consults worldwide from the comfort of your own home. That's the Leanne Ward Nutrition Virtual Clinic. If anybody feels like they'd like a consultation in December or January, come and work with my team.
Such a good idea. And make sure you follow Leanne on Instagram as well, because everything about her book and everything is there. What is your handle, Leanne?
So The Fitness Dietitian. I probably should change that, but it's been that way for over a decade and I feel like I'm a little bit too far into changing it now.
Don't change it. It's working. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you so much, Tiff, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Bounce Forward. I love having your company, so please DM me on Instagram at tiffhall_xo and let me know what topics you'd love me to cover. Don't forget to rate and review me on your podcast app. Speak soon. Happy days.